Hey, Tani. Hey, are we on?
Perfect. Hi.
How you going? We made it.
Did you? Oh, the joys of Facebook, huh?
It'd be me, 100% be me. It would be something that I would have set up in my settings. I'm sure of it. I'm sure I'm the problem.
Nah, oh, it's all good. It's everything's worked out as they're meant to. So no, this would be perfect.
Yeah, and Tani said something about setting it up to Facebook so it can still be live, but I haven't heard back from her. So we'll just wait and see what happens. Because I've got obviously this account set up, and I can send it or share it somehow. But
That would be perfect. Yeah. And I think everything works out as it's meant to. So it could be a really good way just to share it out, and yeah, people will watch it when they can, when they're ready. So no, all good.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on.
Hey, no, thank you. I'm honestly so pumped. It's been coming up for me so much recently, the last 2 weeks, and it's just something that I just feel so passionate about, but I don't work in that space a lot. And just by seeing what you're doing out there, and just seeing your growth over the nearly 10 years since I've seen you, and what you guys are doing in that space is just so necessary right now. And I have a lot of men contact me, and they're mainly like 30 plus, of just, I'm really struggling with emotions. I don't know what to do. I've been told this. I don't know how to reprogram. So I just was like, yeah, if you'd be up for a conversation, I'd love to just hear from you, I guess, your experience, what it is you do, why you're so driven to help this. Go ahead. So thanks, Linz.
Well, thank you. I do have my partner here just to see if we can set it up. So,
hey, Tony. Thank you so much.
I can't hear anything because you've got your earpiece in, Lindsay.
Yeah, I've got earphones in.
I love the joys of social media, and this whole pivoting.
We make it work.
100%.
I think this is the best way to go. We can always do it again. It's not like this is the only chance we get. All right. So I guess the part to speak to is obviously it's a lot to do. I feel like it's a lot to do with our social conditioning. And so the social conditioning as men that we have is to be stoic, and to, that vulnerability is almost like is weakness. It's like emotions are a weakness, or, a lack of control. It's like we get indoctrinated at a young age that we should be a certain way and control our emotions and our manners and everything like that, especially as young boys. Hence why I feel like, school is a very tough time for young men. We don't really go so well by sitting in a classroom. We learn a little bit different. We're more of a visceral learners. We're more tactile. And we're told to basically sit still, which is nearly impossible for that age demographic.
Totally.
And then we're also led to believe that, how well we can listen, follow, and submit is, what's needed and necessary in life. So I guess it's like we're trying to be good boys to get the result that we want. And, you know, that works for some. I'm not saying it's for everyone, but it can lead to feeling like we have a bit of a kink in our hose, like we have no outlet for what we really want. And I feel like for so many men, it's almost like we forget the part of ourselves that's wild within us. And then so often the experience is that women want us to be wild and love a man that's in his fullness, but we're kind of void of that. We kind of lose it. And then when it does come out, it comes out in a shadowy way. So it can be, you know, not deemed appropriate, or we're too much.
No, I really love that. Thanks for sharing. And, you know, your sort of headline is, you know, you're a man on a mission with this kind of stuff. And I freaking love that. And I love the fact that you delve into the, you know, the relationship side of it too, because it's really, really important to understand this difference between us and to where reactivity might come from in that kind of sense as well. And you mentioned in that recent talk that you shared, I think it was yesterday, about this need to be needed as a male. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because I had this conversation with, you know, a male actually 2 days ago, and, you know, he works with 50 guys, and it's like this, when we have that taken away from us, when people don't need us, as a male, we can feel deflated. We can feel it.
I think I can speak to that because I had the visceral sensation, the visceral experience of that, having like a business and being a coach for numbers of years. And then when I wasn't running that business anymore, it's like my identity disappeared. It's like the thing that I try and help men understand is they're not their business. You know, they're not their job. You know, I, Linzey, am me. You know, you, Meg, are you. It's not you are a yoga teacher or you are this thing. It's a title. It's what you do. But it's like, who are you? Like, if you're not all your conditioning and all who you are, like, who are you at a core belief? So I guess for men, it's a bit of that. You know, I've worked maybe for 10 years outside of school, and I thought that, you know, having a car, having a house, having a career, maybe having a wife, maybe having kids, getting a dog, getting a jet ski, getting those things would somehow make me feel a certain way. And then it becomes more and more empty. And I guess a lot of men get to that point of, you know, what's it all for? You know, what is this if I'm not these things? So I guess speaking to, you know, if I'm not all those things, who am I at a core belief? And it's having men be okay that they don't need to be their job. You know, they don't need to be constantly in their warrior doer mode. And, you know, how do they feel about that? Because I speak to a lot of men similarly, and they're scared to make a change. They're scared that if they don't keep working the way they are, they're not going to provide. And if they don't have enough money, you know, somehow they'll be less attractive. Like, I know, I see plenty of men with plenty of women that are broke, you know, so it's not about how much money you have. It's like, it's how much you can be connected to yourself and then therefore be connected with somebody else. It's like, you know, if someone has money, maybe that's attractive, but I feel like to women, what's actually attractive is not how much money a man has. It's how much does that man, how aligned is that man to his mission? That's attractive, and money is the byproducts.
Exactly.
So it's like, having that feeling. And I think for a lot of men, and I was one of these men as well, that I got to the point in my life that, you know, there's the thing that I talk about a lot, which is the natural order. So the natural order is you put yourself first, you put your partner second, you put your family third, and then you put your work last. And for so many men, their work is number one. And so, and they feel like they have to put aside their feelings, their desires, their true wants to work to then provide. And it's this old paradigm of, you know, the baby boomers and the silent generation upbringing, which is like, you work and you provide and you shut up and that's it, you know?
And that's, you kind of just don't even find out who you are. I
No.
feel.
Yeah. And, you know, realizing that after a period of time of doing that, you can do it for a certain amount of time, but at some point it's like, what's all this for? You know, and then that becomes the midlife crisis. Or for me, I predominantly work with the men around what we call the man switch age, which is 28 to 32 is typically the point in a man's life where he's been 10 years out of school or 10 years out of uni and kind of lived life how it should be done, and then probably realize that it's like, I've done all the drinking, I've done all the drug taking, I've had all the sex I could possibly like chase after, and I'm wanting more in my life. Now what?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's almost like time to grow up, but not in a negative way. It's more like, well, how do I want to do it for me? What's important to me?
Yeah. Yeah, it's you know, I'm loving where this conversation's going, because it's, you know, I work similar with females who sort of go through their life and they put everyone else first, and they're exhausted and tired and frustrated and resentful, and they're just judging their bodies and what they're doing. They get to, you know, mid-30s, 40s, whatever, and they're like, I don't know who I am, because I've not the time to look into that, and now I'm too old or whatever. And it's just this patterning and practice of you know, the old program, as I said, the hardwired program that we have learned from a very young age to go, you know, we have to provide as a male, or as a female, we have to be a perfectionist, right? We have to people please. And then we're never ever taught to listen here, whether it be a male or a female, I believe, this coming back to the self, to go, hang on a second, what happens if I put myself first? And I'm a huge believer in that too. We cannot pour from an empty cup, and we can only love another as much as we love ourselves, whether that be male or female. And especially in a partner, like, you got to have that connection to yourself to be able to share and to grow and to move forward. And it's, yeah, just, I think the one thing that's been coming up for me recently with a lot of males is this, we're in lockdown or whatever it is, and I've lost my job. I've lost this ability to provide. And what I'm seeing is these males are like, I don't know what to do. I'm stuck because I don't have this anymore. And as what you said, even the Dalai Lama in his book, The Art of Happiness, says we cannot judge our happiness on what we own, who we are, what we look like, the amount of money we have in our bank account, what suburb we live in, because he's like, we could lose it all in the instant, and we can. And the happiness must come from within, from this soul space. I'm just feeling that these males, and especially in the bracket you spoke about, have kind of, they're now at home and they're like, I'm not the provider, so who am I? And that must be super confronting. Like, that must be so hard.
It's definitely something that, you know, for me, it was a 3-year journey in that, and it wasn't at a time, it was 2018 when that happened for me in particular. And just so much change and so much uncertainty. And I guess it just comes down to, you know, I mean, I could talk about daily practices, but it's also just the understanding of just, you know, diversifying and knowing how to pivot as a man. Like, you know, to not be the provider, it doesn't mean you still can't be the leader. You know, you can still lead your family, you can still be grounded and centered. It's more like, well, what can you do, and focusing on that. But it's also having the understanding that there is support out there. There is men out there like myself and a lot of other men that I interact with on a daily basis that are doing this work of supporting men, helping, encouraging, giving them new tools that they didn't learn at school, you know, life skills stuff. It's like, it's a rites of passage. And, you know, to be honest, there's actual beauty in suffering. There's a beauty in going through hard times. Like, hard times are good teachers, absolute great teachers. So it's like, you know, the default is, and the thing that I try and encourage men to do is realize that learning isn't like a school-based learning. Life skills and life learning is, if we have a relationship to learning something new that we did like when we're at school, I can see why men don't want to. They're pretty stuck in their ways. So to create a little bit more plasticity is like, these are the life skills that we can now put in place. It's like, if I did lose my job, what could I do different? It was
Yeah.
like, for me this year, it's like I gave up my full-time job, my secure, safe job,
Yeah.
to dive into men's work full time. And it's like, there's so much uncertainty in that. But I tell you, I fucking love it. It's like, it fires me up. It makes me alive. So I just figure, for other men that are doing jobs that maybe they've lost their job, it's like, what's this opportunity providing for you right now? What lesson is it? If there's shadow work to be looked at, what is it? Is it, you know, is one of your core beliefs is that I need to be in control, and now you've lost control and it's just really being triggered around that? Is it putting extra strain on your relationship because you're at home 40 hours extra a week that you weren't normally, you know? And it's that sort of thing. So again, men need support, and I know I'm that way inclined as well. Like, I definitely need support. That's why originally I started in a men's group, you know, like men's group is a great way to connect with other men, to know that you're not alone, and that what you go through is like other men are going through it as well. So how do you create connection and community inside of that, such that you can talk to them and be vulnerable and share your, you know, your fears, or share your frustrations? Like, to me, it's a great way for me to let out my anger and rage in a healthy way, is because I'm speaking to it in a way that's separate from when I'm in it. And I think for so many men, they live their lives as like everything is okay. It's what I call the king energy. The king archetype has a shadow side called the tyrant, and the tyrant in all of us, we all have a tyrant in us, and that tyrant's always like, everything is good, everything is fine. We put the facade up. It's like, how you going today? I'm good, even though I could be dying inside. So it's like getting to that point where we can share those shadow aspects of ourselves, where it's like, I'm fucking not okay. I don't feel good this week. I am pissed off. I'm pissed off that I lost my job, or I'm pissed off about my partner, you know? It puts a spotlight on some things in our life, and we don't know how to deal with it. And I feel like for so many men, men's group is an awesome way to blow off steam every week.
And you know, you touched on the vulnerability there, and the needing to ask for help. I think is a really big one. And this is, you know, what I was sort of speaking with the other day, about this ability to go, I can't ask for help because that's it's not a thing that a male should do, to actually say, I'm struggling, this is hard. I'd rather bottle up and say I'm fine. And then you're going to take that energy home with you, because bottled up energy is like trying to block a fucking stream, like, or the ocean. You can't block it. You can put whatever you want in front of it to try and stop this energy, but it's going to get aggressive and angry. It's going to bubble over. And you come home to your partner like that or whatever, then there's going to be maybe something that you get triggered, is what you said. And, you know, Dan Siegel talks about it. Have you read Mindsight by Dan Siegel? Oh, he shares the hand model of the brain. So it's really, really good. And you've probably seen this, like they talk about in psychology, but our limbic region, our emotional region, is like under here where our thumb is. Our cortex or neocortex is on top, and prefrontal cortex, our intuition and our present moment, is here. So if we're bottling up emotions and everything like that through our day, we're constantly suppressing stuff. So the moment we come home, and possibly we get triggered by our kids or partner or whatever it might be, Dan Siegel says we flip our lids, right? Which happens, and we actually expose this limbic region, which is our emotional center, and that's when we're reactive. And when we're reactive, we're on autopilot. We say stuff we don't want, which we fire up. What do you call it? The tyrant, you know? And then we say it, we're like, fuck, like, why did this come out? Females are the same deal, but it's just this bottling up of emotions, of not dropping into our vulnerability and actually going, I'm feeling shit. This is really hard. I'm suffering right now. I need help. And this is where these men's groups are just, this is great. This is so great.
It's also having, for men, it's also having the understanding that there's the fight, flight, freeze, please, you know, and some people call it fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. I just find with men, it's understanding that it's like to please, to be the nice guy, because so many men that I work with in men's group are suffering from nice guy syndrome. And so, that part is like the overwhelm part, when a man feels overwhelmed and can like click or, you know, snap. And the snapping is so often just the body's response, or the external factors coming in become too much, and the coping mechanism gets clicked over. And I just figure for so many men, it's like, you don't have to hold all that on, you know, it's not putting up the smoke screen. And it's like, unfortunately, like, it's off topic, but I'm rewatching The Secret Life of Us at the moment. And it just makes me laugh to think just how much like drinking is in a society for Australia. And I just figure, like, for me, one of my core values is depth, like depth in relationship. And that's with males or females. I don't mind who it is. It's more just like, I don't like superficial conversation. It's boring. And so to me, it's how can we drop into that space? How can we, you know, how can we have conversations with our brothers and our friends that's like, you know, the 3 a.m. like deep chats that we have after a night out kind of vibes. Like, I just want to go to that at every point in my life. So, you know, how's your day? And that sort of conversation about the weather with men is infuriating to me, because it's like, it's not what it's about. Like, there's so much depth in men, and hardly anyone gets to experience it. You know, it's like, there was a long period of time that I would hang out predominantly with women, because women at least would share themselves, you know, and we could have real conversations. And what I have learned is men are just as deep, just as sensitive, just as emotional, all those things. And they're fucking brilliant. You know, men are just incredible humans. So just to have that awareness and to be able to do the study that I'm doing and do the work with men is like, I get to fully experience men in their fullness, you know, in their lover archetype, or their magician archetype, or their king, or their whatever it is. It's like, there's so much gold inside of men. And I feel like men themselves only know the surface of themselves. So this is why my deep work is helping men feel all of their feelings without guilt or shame, you know, because for so many men, there's the 4 major emotions. You got mad, sad, glad, and fear. And if you don't feel those 4 things, you end up with shame or guilt. And shame and guilt is secondary emotions. That's all it is. So if someone can't fully express their fear, or can't fully express their anger, it gets stored away, and then it comes out sideways. In, you know, stonewalling people, you know, passive aggressive nature. You know, it can come out as tyrannical. It can come out as like words, like violent words, violent interactions with people, road rage, like any of those things that I see for men. It's like, if men have a constant trigger firing off, it's like, let's deal with the deeper emotion here. You know,
it so is. And you know, I'm really big on use your trigger as a teacher. So when I'm triggered in my environment, I'm like, whoa, I'm like, thank you for that trigger, for showing up, for showing me what I need to look into, for showing me to do the work, because it's saying that there's something that I'm holding on to deep inside. And I think the same is for men too. And you know, you mentioned it comes out sideways, and physiologically too, like it comes out with things like, especially for men, prostate cancer is really huge. So shame and guilt are held in our gut, right? That's where the chakra energy is, or the emotion is felt, is all around into this area, and our sexual organs as well. It's those two emotions are huge for storing. So low back pain, tight hips, like all that kind of stuff as well, along with what Lindsay said, like you know, how it comes out sideways in the actions and the behaviors that we have as well.
And it's a lot to do with trust as well. Like, I think there's a real big lack of trust between men, and a trust as far as like authority, or trust to get support. It's like, because it's a bit around that vulnerability piece. So like, being vulnerable, if it's seen as a weakness, if my story is vulnerability is me being weak, then I need to be more stoic And if I'm
Yeah.
stoic, then I can't actually ask for help. I can't actually drop in with my friends. And if I do, I wait until it's like at a point where my life is like terrible. Or the same thing, like you're saying with health, it's like the Akomi study that I'm doing with my somatic psychotherapy study, it's around like, yeah, that visceral sensation in the body. And, you know, me too, I have experienced like, you know, upset stomach issues in the past. And I know it's around that. I know my lower back pain is around not feeling supported, but it's like, I also need to learn to ask for support. I can't just act like the little boy and hope that my mummy, you know, society or my partner is then going to just fix it for me. So it's like, you know, not offloading and not putting that neediness onto my partner to solve and be the leader and to be the grown up, but actually taking responsibility, leading my relationship, leading the communication, trusting that my health is my responsibility, because you know what? I put myself first. If I put myself first, that's actually attractive to other people, because it's like, yeah, I'm taking control, I'm taking responsibility. And the last thing I need to do is gaslight my partner for not, you know, for me not taking full charge and full responsibility for my life and the wellness and welfare of my family. Because it's like, that's huge. That's number one. I come first, partner second, family third, work last. And you know, anytime that's out of order, you can do it for a bit, but it doesn't work long term. Really doesn't. So yeah, just coming back to the trust.
Yeah, and it's ownership, isn't it? You know, every choice we make, every decision, word, action, behavior has all been our choice, and up to this very moment. So exactly that. So if we've got low back pain, it's for us to look into that, to go, hang on a second, why is this presenting? What's underneath that? And as what you said, it's just take ownership for it. And I think, as what you said before in one of the other conversations, this fixing energy or you know, this mothering to the partner is super unattractive. And as a female, 100%, I have had that in previous relationships, and it's not attractive at all. This when a man can be vulnerable for me and talk about, oh my God, this was really hard today, I'm struggling with this emotion. That's fucking sexy as anything. It really is. And it just shows that also that you're human. And from that space, for me, that shows strength.
Yeah. Well, I'm the same. Strength to me, like being vulnerable, being able to show and fully express your emotions with whoever you want, is liberating and freedom. Like for so many men, we chase freedom as a desire point, and like all the ways that we can chase freedom. But you know, if we're free with ourselves and free in our emotional well-being and our emotional state, there's no more freedom than that. Because then everything falls from that point, you know. So it's almost like this paradox for men is like, oh, we're taught to be stoic, but actually being vulnerable gives us the freedom that we always wanted. We thought that maybe trying to be stoic and doing all these things would get us what we want. And it's the actual opposite. It's like a bit of a trick. It seems ridiculous, but it's like, there's so much freedom in vulnerability. So much freedom in vulnerability.
And that's the thing, like how many, you know, how long are you going to climb the ladder to get to the top? How many cars are you going to want to own? How much money do you want to have in the bank to try and find this point of happiness and a label or whatever it might be? If you're always searching, you're always going to be looking, you're never ever going to get to that point. And as what Lindsay said, freedom is easy. And I was a person, for myself, even being a female, I was constantly searching for the next thing to make me a better person so that I'd fit in with society or whatever it was that it was wanted. And it was all external. And if we're basing this belief on the external things to make us happy or to make us a better man or whatever that might be, it's where do you stop? Where's the line onto that? And again, we're just going further and further away from this place where we feel, and basing everything on what's external around us.
And it usually comes at a point where it comes at a crossroad for a lot of men. It's not something that this is the whole piece that I'm talking to about men stepping in to do men's work. It's usually their partner's fed up with them, or they've lost their job, or it's whatever, and they get to a point where their life no longer works the way that they've been doing it, you know, and it's through no lack of trying. Like, men will double down on what they do, you know, they'll try even harder, even if something's not working so often. And, you know, they want to change, they just don't know how to do it. And they feel like for themselves, I know this because I experience it with men every week, is, you know, that vulnerability, that trust piece to ask an elder man. And it doesn't have to be necessarily an older man, but it's just a man that's more emotionally mature to ask and then find questions. And sometimes it's not in your social setting. It could be an elder person. It could be someone that's gone before you that has insight and wisdom. And, you know, not seeing elder men as a threat, because that's kind of like boy psychology. It's more like, how can I find loving mentors to guide and direct me? Because it doesn't always have to be your dad. You know, for some of us, we don't have our fathers. For some of us, our fathers aren't the people that we really want to go to, that haven't gone where we want to go. So it's like, and for a lot of us, it's not another business coach. For a lot of us that are in business, that have like strived, it's not that either. It's like, you know, hey, I'm the first person to go and get therapy if I'm struggling with something and I can't work it out and I can't get the support that I need. My other like aspect to men's work is therapeutic, but it's not therapy. So for me, it's like, I'm studying to become a therapist, you know, somatic psychotherapist. And so for me, it's like, we need to create the culture where if your engine is broken in your car, you don't just act like it's not broken. And it's like, it's okay to go and get that fixed. Like in society, it's okay to get a plumber out if your water mains burst. But in society, if you're emotionally kinked and you don't know how to express yourself and you don't know how to get what you want, it's almost like it's not okay to get therapy, because it's like, if I open up this can of worms, I don't know what's going to happen.
Don't look underneath.
Yeah, there's fear there. It's like, oh, if I, you know, when I talk to men about trauma or childhood trauma, it's like, oh, I didn't have any. My childhood was great. You know, it's just like everything was good. You know, no one touched me. No one beat me. I went to a good school. My mum and dad are together, all this stuff. And it's like, great, you know, so there's still stuff in there. There's still gold to be had. And it's not like you have to pick an open wound, like pick a scab to make it bleed. It's more like, how can you know and learn about yourself a little bit more so you can be more of who you are? And have more freedom, you know? So
it's
that's something I want to normalize.
And look, Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score.
Love that book. Love that book.
Honestly, just if we never do the work, it's going to come out in our later life. Like every single thing we suppress and hold down is going to come out, whether it be, as I said, sideways, like when Lindsay said before, or physiologically. And we would rather be doing the work than not. And it really is just an eye-opener of a book. I believe every single one of us goes through trauma. And that's what we're meant to do. The Buddha says all of life is suffering, right? And that's it. It's just acknowledging that it's hard sometimes and just going, you know what, this is really freaking difficult. I don't know how to deal with it, and getting curious, not critical, about, okay, how's this presenting? Can I tune in to, you know, my conditioned response of I'm fine, I'm good, I've got my shit together, to go, maybe I'm not.
And being curious around it, like just being curious around, okay, so if I'm not okay, what am I? And like, it's okay as well. Like, it's okay to be mad. It's okay to have rage. It's okay to have sadness. It's okay to want to destroy something in this moment, but it's like, you know, it's giving people the freedom to be all of that which they are, because we are all these things. You know, it's a trap.
For again, a lot of people out there, I know you work a lot in the relationship space as well, and I just want to ask, because one thing I hear of all the time, especially these older men just coming home and, you know, maybe they've lost their job due to COVID or whatever it is, and they've had this building up tension with their wife or partner because they've been overdoing with work, because that's what people do when they don't want to feel emotions. We numb. So we're either drinking alcohol, taking drugs, over sex, whatever it might be, or overdoing at work. And then finally the work's taken away and he comes home and he's just mad and frustrated. But if the male wants to start to heal this relationship with his partner, how can he open up a conversation on his own vulnerability?
Use I language as much as you can.
But
use
thank
I
you.
language. So if when I'm feeling this way, it's like I'm mad, I'm upset, I feel afraid, I don't know what to do. The last thing as a man we want to do when we're having an overwhelming feeling of emotions is to put it onto the other person, because no one else can make you feel a certain way. It's your reaction to what's happening that's actually the responsibility. So it's not like you have to be stoic and all in control, but you do need to take responsibility for how you are emotionally and your reactions and your stress. So, you know, if a man's been trying really hard with his job and it's financially stressed and COVID's hit, for example, and he comes home and he feels like, oh, it's his wife's fault that he's had to work so hard and now it's not there. And how much are you working versus how much I'm working, whatever it is. It's like, the biggest thing that I tell men is when you're in partnership with somebody, you're on a team. The best way to think about it is you're on a team with each other. So if your partner or if your teammate, say you're playing football, basketball, netball, whatever it is, if your teammate makes a shot and misses, you don't rag on your teammate. You put them up, you bring them up and you go, this is what we can do better, right? So in my instance, like I'm in a marriage and a relationship that's nearly 20 years old now, is that we're teammates. This is how we make it work. So if one of us is not doing as well, how can we be like for me, it's always, how can I be the MVP? My goal is to always be the MVP in the relationship. It's not a competition of who can be better. It's how can I make this team the best? You know? How can I support my partner? How can I put them in a good position such that they can make a really good shot, so to speak? Like if we're going to use like sport as a term to do it, which I feel like men sort of get, it's like, you know, your partner is your teammate. So there's no point of bagging out your teammate or making their life harder. That just makes it harder for you. So yeah, that would be the biggest thing for me is like, how can we create teamwork? And to me, it's like, how can we have a weekly catch up in our relationship? Because there's in our relationship and then there's on our relationship. Like any business, we can work in our relationship, head down, just doing the thing. But when do we work on our relationship? And the same thing for us as individuals. This is why I do something like my workshop on Sunday. This is a day that we're not in our life. It's actually, we're taking stock and working on our life so we can set it up how we really want. And this is just always the same piece. It's like, there's in and there's on. And so, you know, as a man who's leading the relationship, how can I, if I use I language, how can I be responsible for this? How can I take charge, take action in this such that we're on the same page?
It's it's so good. It's just like being the observer, isn't it? Just kind of going, stepping back a little bit and going, hang on a second, what's going on here? How can, okay, this is how it has been or whatever, and observe what's going on without judgment. And then exactly that, jumping in and seeing where that can be changed. Like,
and any relationship is, there's you, me, and then us. So there's three parties in the relationship, right? And so we need to understand that sometimes it's just what's happening between the two individuals. The actual relationship is good. So often the relationship is fine. It's just something going on between the two individuals.
Yeah.
So like I'll have something that's coming up for me that I'm not addressing, causes friction in the relationship, but it's actually my responsibility.
Mhm.
You know, so it's like
So,
if I have an injured knee, the team can't do as well. So it's
yeah.
not the team's fault. It's my, you know, it's my responsibility is how I like to look at it. And
Yeah.
so, you know, putting this out there for men is like, it also comes back to little things like some men might not have ever heard what the drama triangle is, or, you know, or trauma triangle. It's the victim, the rescuer, and the perpetrator, and just
100%.
having that happen. So, you know, just understanding when we're having a conversation with our partner or we're triggered with our partner is like, what role am I taking on here? If there's friction in the relationship, there's usually going to be 3 parties that can be at play. And, you know, if I act like a victim, am I trying to be rescued by my partner? And if she doesn't rescue me, then I then make her the perpetrator, or I become the perpetrator and I get mad and angry because I can't get what I want.
Yeah.
You know, it's usually some version of this playing out in our relationship. So it's just like becoming and having more tools and becoming more aware so we can be more of who we are, more free, more of the things that we want in our relationship and in our life. You know, so important for men. It's just so much of this stuff that I've learned over the last couple of years just doesn't get taught, you know? So that's why I'm like rambling on about it all the time, you know? It's just like, it's important work. It's important to have this knowledge and I guess the tools so we can have epic lives. Like I'm really interested in people having a life where they're thriving versus surviving. That's like a big one for me.
Yeah, I've 100% back. I'm exactly the same. You know, the body image stuff I do with women, I'm like, no one deserves to beat themselves up or to live shitty. We're not here to do that, whether it be a male or a female. And, you know, I grew up in a family where emotions were never felt. And, you know, even up until recently, a couple of years ago, I tried to have a conversation with my dad. And, you know, it was like, oh, we just need to talk about it. I just want to sit down and because I don't want in 10 years' time to not talk. I don't want to talk about the weather. I don't want to talk about, I don't watch the news, like all this, I want a relationship. And, you know, the response was emotions are not talked about in this family. And, you know, it's just something that, where has that come from? And this is what Linzey does. And, you know, I'll sort of wrap this up now so we're not going for too long. But guys, Linzey has a workshop on Sunday. It's this Sunday, the 29th of August. 29th of August, far out. That's crazy.
Yeah. So 29th of August, it's 9 till 3. It's on Zoom. Any man can attend. $99 for the day. There's links. We'll post the links and all that sort of stuff. But I dare say a lot of this work that we're dealing with now is coming from generational stuff. So, you know, the silent generation brought up the baby boomers, and the baby boomers, a lot of us are our parents. And so, you know, you got to think, how did they grow up? So often people don't realize is like your parents were once little kids. Weird to think, but it's like, you know, if you think about it, it's a question to ask your parents is, what was it like growing up for you? You know, how was it taught? How were you taught how to show your emotions? How were you taught about body image? You know, because I deal with a lot with my men in the groups that I talk about is men are just under the pump with body image as women are. And for most of us, no one beats ourselves up more than we do. We are the biggest obstacle. And I've got to say this again. We are the biggest obstacle in our lives is ourselves. No one stops us more than we stop ourselves. So this is what I'm trying to help men understand and break through. And so they can be more fully expressed and go and fucking live their lives fully, you know, and do the same for the women in their life as well and for their kids.
Yeah. And it's the best feeling, isn't it? Stepping into just this acceptance and who you are. I think both of us probably understand that on a level. I never thought I'd feel the way I do about myself and actually living fully. I could die tomorrow and I'm so fucking I'm doing what I'm here to do. And I think Linzey's the same. And it's just, that's available to everyone, isn't it? Like and that's, I think, why we're both so passionate in the realms we're in, to just go, people can experience that. We've just got, as we said, we need the tools. You need it in your toolkit to be able to go, hang on a second, I'm being triggered. Okay, what's that about? What do I do from here to make it different? And that's the neuroplasticity. And it's, yeah, we all deserve this amazing life. I just can't recommend it enough. Go. Thank you for doing what you do. I've got the workshop up here. I'll of course post the link. You'll post it, but jump on. It's been so nice to reconnect after all these years. 2012 was when we did CrossFit. Lindsay. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time, but it's a good time, and I'm sure we'll do this again soon. Thank you.
I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. Thanks to Tani too.
I'll let her know. All right.
Yeah.
Peace.
Thanks.
Love ya.
You too, man. Take it easy.
Bye.